Levels of organization: atoms, molecules, biological molecules, organelles, cells, tissues, organs, organ systems. Biological molecules: proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, nucleic acids. Atoms combine together to form molecules. Molecules interact together to form cells. Cells combines with secretes and regulates with extracellular materials and fluids to form tissues. Four main types of tissues: epithelia, connective, muscle, nervous. The four tissues combine together and form organs. Organs turn into organ systems. Organ systems: digestive, respiratory, skeletal, nervous, endocrine, cardiovascular, urinary, reproductive, integumentary, lymphatic, and muscle. Medial, closer to the mid. Lateral, further away from the mid. Mesentery, big sheet of peritoneum in between the parietal and the visceral. Epithelia, tissues that always line a lumen, little intercellular space supported upon the basement membrane. Epithelia is spelt E-P-I-T-H-E-L-I-A. Simple, one layer, all cells that contact the basement membrane. Stratified, two or more layers, only the bottom layer touches the basement membrane. Squamous, S-Q-U-A-M-O-U-S. Scale shaped like a fish. Lots of nuclei down deep with lots of circles, then thins out to flat nuclei. Cuboidal, C-U-B-O-I-D-A-L. Cube looking. Nuclei is almost always in the center. Columnar, C-U-L-U-M-N-A-R. Square or rectangular. Nuclei is not centered and it is in a single file line. Generally, the only one with cilia. Cilia, C-I-L-I-A. Hair-like tissue that helps move things like mucus, for example, in the lungs and nostrils. Pseudostratified. P-S-E-U-D-O-S-T-R-A-T-I-F-I-E-D. Appears to be single-filed, but it has multiple rows. Epithelium, a sheet of cells that covers an exposed surface or lines an internal cavity or passageway. It also covers every exposed body surface. Epithelia does not contain blood vessels. Neuroepithelium, N-E-U-R-O-E-P-I-T-H-E-L-I-U-M. Neuroepithelium, the specialized sensory epithelium. Gland cells are epithelial cells that produce secretions. Goblet cells, clear mucus pockets. Histology. The study of groups of cells, tissues, and organs that work together to perform specific functions. Tissue prep for histology. 1. Obtain the specimen. 2. Dice tissue into small cubes. 3. Place tissue into fixative. 4. Dehydration process with ethyl alcohol. First it's 35%, then it's 50%, then 70%, then 95%, then 100% where all water is removed. Number 5, infiltrate with xylene. Number 6, infiltrate with paraffin. Number 7, place in a mold with liquid paraffin, solidify it. Number 8, trim block of paraffin for sectioning. Number 9, slice tissue into sections 5 to 7 microns using a microtome. Number 10, mount it on the glass. Number 11, rehydrate the tissue. Number 12, stain with hematoxylin in the ozone. 13. Redehydrate with no paraffin and glue instead. Number 14. Glue on the cover glass. Number 15. Clean and label the slide. Number 16. Observe. Simple squamous epithelium. Location. Mesothelial lining, ventral body cavity, endothelial lining heart and blood vessels, portions of kidney tubules, inner lining of the cornea, alveoli of lungs. Functions: reduces friction, controls vessel permeability, performs absorption and secretion. Stratified squamous epithelium. Locations: surface of the skin, lining of the oral cavity, throat, esophagus, rectum, anus, and vagina. Functions: provides physical protection against abrasion, pathogens, and chemical attack. Stratified columnar epithelium. Locations: small areas of the pharynx, epiglottis, anus, mammary gland, salivary gland ducts, and urethra. Function: protection. Simple columnar epithelium. Location: lining of stomach, intestine, gallbladder, uterine tubes, and collecting ducts and kidneys. Functions: protection, secretion, absorption. Pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. Lining of the nasal cavity, trachea, and bronchi, portions of male reproductive tract. Functions: protection, secretion. Transitional epithelium. Locations: urinary bladder, renal pelvis, uterus. Functions: permits expansion and recoil after stretching. Stratified cuboidal epithelium. Locations: lining of some ducts. Simple cuboidal epithelium. Glands, ducts, portions of kidney tubules, thyroid gland. Functions: limited protection, secretion, absorption. Connective tissue. Lots of intercellular space filled with matrix. Melanocytes. Synthesize and store a brown pigment that gives the tissue a dark color. Common in the epithelium of the skin, it helps determine skin color. Adipocytes. Fat cells. Fixed macrophages. Large amoeboid cells that are scattered among the fibers. They engulf damaged or dead cells that enter the tissue. Fibrocytes. Maintain the connective tissue fibers of connective tissue proper. Cells of connective tissue proper are fixed cells. Fixed cells include fibroblasts, fibrocytes, fixed macrophages, adipocytes, melanocytes. Wandering cells, cells that are concerned primarily with the defense and repair of damaged tissues. Fibroblasts, slender stellate cells are responsible for the production of all connective tissue fibers. Mesenchymal cells present in many connective tissues. These cells respond to local injury or infection by dividing to produce daughter cells that differentiate into fibroblasts, macrophages, or other connective tissue cells. Fixed cells, stationary cells, involved primarily with the defense and repair of damaged tissue. Supporting connective tissues, cartilage, bone, matrix of cartilage that's gel, matrix of bone that's calcified. Fluid connective tissues have a distinctive population of cells suspended in a watery matrix that contains dissolved proteins, blood, and lymph. Connective tissue proper. Connective tissues with many types of cells and extracellular fibers and a syrupy ground substance. These connective tissues may differ in terms of the number of cell types they contain. Classification of connective tissues. Connective tissue proper. Fluid connective tissue. Supporting connective tissues. Connective tissue fibers. Collagen fibers, reticular fibers, elastic fibers. Collagen fibers are long, straight, and unbranched. Reticular fibers branching interwoven framework. Elastic fibers contain the protein elastin, branching and wavy. Ground substance, clear, colorless, similar in consistency to maple syrup. Mucoid connective tissue, loose connective tissue found in many regions of the embryo, including the umbilical cord. Elastic tissue, contains large numbers of elastic fibers, may stretch and rebound. Ligaments, connect cartilage to cartilage, bone to cartilage, or one bone to another bone. Loose connective tissues is the packing material of the body. Areolar connective tissue contains all the cells and fibers found in connective tissue proper. Adipose tissue, adipocytes are found in almost all forms of areolar connective tissues. The reticular tissue forms the stroma of the liver, the spleen, lymph nodes, and bone marrow, seldomly visible. Dense regular connective tissue. Collagen fibers are packed tightly and aligned parallel to applied forces. Four major types of examples: tendon, aponeurosis, elastic tissue, ligaments. Tendons, cords of dense regular connective tissue that attach skeletal muscles to bones and cartilage. Aponeurosis, collagenous sheets that resemble flat, broad tendons. Dense, irregular connective tissues form interwoven meshwork and do not show any consistent pattern. Fluid connective tissues, blood and lymph. Cartilage and bone are the supporting connective tissues. Hyaline cartilage, most common type of cartilage, yet the weakest type of cartilage, not always visible. Elastic cartilage, resilient and flexible, example the ear. Fibrous cartilage, little ground substance, also known as fibrocartilage. Osseous tissue is another word for bone. Periosteum, almost all bone surfaces are sheathed with that. Mucous membranes, lines the passageways that communicate with the exterior, including the digestive, respiratory, reproductive, and urinary tracts, form a barrier that resists the entry of pathogens. Lamina propria, the areola tissue component of mucous membranes. Serous membranes, the subdivisions of the ventral body cavity are lined by this. Transudate, the fluid formed on the surfaces of serous membrane. Cutaneous membrane, also known as the skin, covers the surface of the body. Synovial membranes, joints that permit significant movement, are surrounded by a fibrous capsule and contain a joint cavity lined by this synovial membrane. Fascia, Fascia, a general term for a layer or sheet of connective tissue that can be seen on gross dissection. Superphageal fascia, or subcutaneous, this layer of loose connective tissue separates the skin from underlying tissues and organs.
Mommy, I have to go poop.
Okay, go. Subserous fascia, a layer of loose connective tissue that lies between the deep fascia and the serous membrane that line body cavity.
Go, buddy.
Three major components of fascia: superficial fascia, deep fascia, subserous fascia. Muscle tissue, specialized for contraction. Three types of muscle tissue: skeletal, cardiac, and smooth. Skeletal muscle tissue contains very large muscle cells, also known as muscle fibers. Cardiac muscle tissue, found only in the heart, also known as pacemaker. Smooth muscle tissue, a small cell with tapering ends containing a single centrally located oval nucleus. Neural tissue has two basic cells: neurons, the nerve, and neuroglia, the glue. Axial skeleton, AXIAL, skull, vertebrae, sacrum, coccyx, hyoid, sternum, and ribs. Cervical vertebrae, looks like a fox head. Thoracic vertebrae, looks like the giraffe head. Lumbar vertebrae, looks like the moose head. Coccyx. Coccyx. Tailbone. Hyoid. Hyoid. Above the larynx. Looks like the lower vampire teeth. Doesn't connect to any other bone. Sternum. Sternum. Mandrium. Body. Xiphoid process.
It's off, I think. You turn it off, I think. Captain Maker, where are you?
Ribs. 12 pairs of them. Sharp edge goes down. The sharp turn goes to the back. Appendicular upper skeleton. Scapula. Clavicle. Humerus. Radius. Ulna. Carpals. Metacarpals. Phalanges. Scapula. Scapula. The shoulder blade. The ridge is in the back and the cup goes to the outside. Clavicle. Clavicle. Collarbone. The rough goes down, smooth goes up, most frequently broken bone. Humerus. Humerus. Head goes up, little ramp goes down. Radius. Radius. Radio button goes up, lump goes down, point goes to thumb. Ulna. Ulna. Has a U in it. Flat piece goes to that side of the body. Carpals. Carpals. Scaphoid. Scaphoid. Lunate. Lunate. Triquetral. Triquetral. Pisiform. Pisiform. Trapezium. Trapezium. Trapezoid. Trapezoid. Capitate. Capitate. Hamate. Hamate. Metacarpals. Medicarpals. There's 5 of them, starting with the thumb side. Phalanges. Phalanges. Always start with the thumb side. Proximal, distal, intermediate. Appendicular lower skeleton. Oscoxa, femur, patella, tibia, fibula, tarsals. Oscoxa. Oscoxa. The hip bone. The ilium is the top. Ilium. The ischium is the middle. Ischium. The pubis is the bottom. Pubis. Femur. Femur. Head goes into the hip, curve goes back. Patella. Patella. When the apex is pointing down, the concave side goes to that side. Fibula. Fibula. Slope goes to the rear, rough goes to the ankle. Tibia. Tibia. Bone that sticks out goes to the front, hook goes inside. Sacrum. Sacrum. In between the hips, the tailbone connects to it, separated. They are separate bones when you are a baby. Peritoneal cavity breaks down into the parietal peritoneum, which lines the cavities, and the visceral peritoneum, which lines the organs. The abdominal pelvic cavity breaks down into the abdominal cavity and the pelvic cavity. Pleural cavity breaks down into the parietal pleura, which lines the cavity wall, and the visceral pleural, which lines the lung surface. Pericardial cavity breaks down into parietal pericardium, which lines the cavity wall, visceral pericardium, which lines the heart surface. Thoracic cavity breaks down into the pericardial cavity with the heart and the pleural cavity with the lungs. Superficial membranes. Starts with the durameter, with the subdural space filled with interstitial fluid. The arachnoid, which has subarachnoid space filled with cerebrospinal fluid. The pulmonator, with brain and spinal cord and deep membrane. Hypochondriac means below cartilage. Another word for belly button, umbilicus. White blood cells has neutrophil. 60 to 65% of white blood cells. It is the first responder in tissue trauma. Neutral staining. Lymphocytes are 20 to 25% of white blood cells. They have the B lymphocytes with the red blood marrow for antibodies, and the T lymphocytes help with the immunity. Monocytes are 3 to 8% of white blood cells. Eosinophil is 2 to 4% of white blood cells. And basophil is 0.5 to 1% of white blood cells. Blood is 45% formed elements or cells and 55% fluid of humoral portion or plasma. The outside has a positive voltage, inside has a negative voltage. All living cells show voltage difference between the inside and the outside of the cell. Cutaneous membrane. The epidermis, the dermis. Part of the dermis is the papillary layer and the reticular layer. Accessory structures. Hair follicles, exocrine glands, nails. Nails protect and support tips of the fingers. Hair follicles.
Gordon is faster. Oh, and Rosie too.
Hair follicles produces hairs that protect the skull and produces hair that provide delicate touch sensation on general body surfaces.
That one is easy. Mommy. This one is easy.
Okay. Nervous tissue. Controls movements, conveys information, sends electrochemical transmits. Sensory endings. Meissner corpuscle for light touch. Naked nerve endings for pain and temperature. Pacinian corpuscle for pressure sensation. That one looks like an onion. Epidermis protects dermis from trauma and chemicals. Controls skin permeability, prevents water loss. Prevents entry of pathogens, synthesizes vitamin D. Sensory receptors detect touch, pain, pressure, and temperature. Coordinates immune response to pathogen and skin cancers. The papillary layer of the dermis nourishes and supports the epidermis. The reticular layer of the dermis restricts spread of pathogens penetrating the epidermis, stores lipid reserves, attaches skin to deeper tissue, has sensory receptors that detect touch, pressure, pain, vibration, and temperature, and has blood vessels that assist in thermoregulation. Plasma. Water and proteins. Connective tissues are never exposed to the outside body, includes bone, fat, and blood, different in appearance and function. This tissue consists mostly of extracellular matrix. Three basic components of connective tissues: specialized cells, extracellular protein fibers, fluid known as the ground substance. CAM stands for cell adhesion molecules. Lamina, Lamina, thin layer. Four main tissue types again: epithelia, connective, muscle, and neural. Merocrine secretion. Secretory product packaged into secretory vessels is released through exocytosis onto the surface of the cell. Apocrine secretion. The secretory product is released during the shedding of the apical portion of the cell's cytoplasm, which has become packed with secretory vessels. Holocrine secretion destroys the gland. During the holocrine secretion, the entire cell becomes packed with secretory products and then bursts apart. Secretion is released and the cell dies. Secretory sheet. The glandular cells that dominate the epithelium and release their secretions into an inner compartment. The secretory sheet is also the simplest multicellular exocrine gland. Multicellular glands include glandular epithelia and aggregations of gland cells that produce exocrine or endocrine secretions. Unicellular glands, individual secretory cells. Exocrine glands are categorized according to the nature of the secretions produced. The serous glands secrete watery solution, for example, spit. Mucus glands secrete mucus. Mixed exocrine glands, one serous secretion, one mucus. Endocrine glands, endocrine. Endocrine glands are ductless glands that release their secretions directly into the interstitial fluids, lymph, or blood. Stratified cuboidal epithelium is a tissue that is rare and found in the lining of sweat glands and in the larger ducts of some other exocrine glands, like the mammary glands. Unicellular glands, UNICELLULAR. They are individual gland cells that are scattered among other cell types in an epithelium. Simple cuboidal epithelia is a tissue that provides limited protection and occurs in regions where secretion or absorption take place. Stereocilia, STEREOCILIA, eocilia, are very long microvilli that is incapable of moving. Three factors that are involved in maintaining the physical appearance of an epithelium: intercellular connections, attachments to the basal lamina, and epithelial maintenance and renewal.
You got dirt on your back.
The combination of cell junctions,
Look at Papa's hands.
cams, intercellular
Look at my
cement,
hands. They're weird.
and physical interlocking.
Yeah, and we go too.
I got it on your back.
And now you guys are on my voice recording. I said, and now you're on my voice recording.
Oh, sorry.
The combination of cell junctions, cams, intercellular cement, and physical interlocking is what gives the epithelium great strength and stability. Simple epithelia is the tissue that is found only in protected areas inside the body. Stratified epithelia is the tissues that are usually found in areas subject to significant mechanical or chemical stresses, such as skin and mouth lining. Simple squamous epithelium is the most delicate type of epithelium in the body. Mesothelium, mesothelium, is the simple squamous epithelium that lines the ventral body cavities. Endothelium, the simple squamous epithelium that lines the heart and all the blood vessels. Stratified squamous epithelium is the tissue that is usually found where mechanical stresses are severe. Epithelia functions: provide physical protection, control permeability, provide sensation with neuroepithelium, and produce specialized secretions. Glandular epithelium is the epithelium that does most or all of the epithelial cells that produce secretion. Exocrine glands assist in thermoregulations, excrete waste, and lubricate epidermis. Integumentary system functions: physical protection from environmental hazards, synthesis and storage of lipid reserves, coordination of immune response to pathogen and cancers in skin, sensory information, synthesis of vitamin D, excretion, and thermoregulation. Bone marrow, primary site of blood cell production, which is the red marrow, and storage of energy reserves in fat cells, which is the yellow marrow. Connective tissue functions: establishing a structural framework of the body, transporting fluids and dissolved materials from one region of the body to another, providing protection for delicate organs, supporting, surrounding, and interconnecting other tissue types, storing energy reserves, defending the body from invasion of microorganisms. Cellular portion: erythrocytes, which is red blood cells, and hemoglobin, which is your major protein contents. Your simple columnar epithelium is the tissue that's found in the lining of the stomach, intestinal tract, uterine tubes, and many excretory ducts. Stratified columnar epithelium: this tissue is providing protection along portions of the pharynx, utera, and anus. Pseudostratified columnar epithelium: or pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium, if the cilia is present, is portions of the respiratory tract that contain a specialized columnar epithelium. And traditional epithelia is the tissue that lines the renal pelvis, the uterus, and the urinary bladder.